Hello, my name is George, and I am your host here for the next few minutes. I am the owner of Rev Endurance Sports, and I'm also the lead mechanic. Welcome to another edition of What is in Our Stand today. What we have in our stand today is a lady's bike who was on a ride this Sunday, and she felt that she just did not have enough gearing to get up one of the hills, or a couple of the hills. The challenge is that the hill was 20 something percent, 21%. So it's not going to be easy, but yes, more aggressive type climbing gearing would help. So let's take a look at what she has. Then I will show you what we are going to replace it with, and then we'll talk about a few other things as well as we go through the bike. So if it's your first time here, I do appreciate that you've checked in. And also, if you would hit that little subscription box there, I'd really appreciate it. There is a notification bell there that'll let you know whenever I post a new video. So that would be great as well. So here we go. Let's talk about what is in our stand today. All right. So what we have is a Trek with Ultegra components, and we have an 1128 cassette, and we have a 5034 chainring setup in there. That is right there. So this is fairly common in this area, in San Diego and most of Southern California. This should be able to get you up most climbs. Now it also depends on your strength and your fitness level, and of course the severity of the grade. So at a 20-something% grade, nothing is easy. But what we discussed was replacing the cassette with a much larger cassette, and then replacing the chain rings with something smaller. And so we'll address that here in a minute when we walk over to the bench. Now, one of the things that will allow us to do that is that she has a long cage derailleur on her bike. Now, in recent years, they've gone from calling these long cage derailleurs to GS, and they call them like a mid, but it's long compared to a short cage derailleur, which I could show you. Now, one of the things that I do want to point out is the bike fit on this bike is a little bit strange. So if you give me just a second to unhook the bike and get it off of the stand. So we'll try to do this as gracefully as possible. What I want to show you is something that is a little bit alarming to me, and especially with all the descending that we have here. So let's see if the bike will just stay there. So now the bike is on level ground, and what I want you to look at is the upturn on these handlebars. So here's the seat, and then here are the handlebars. Now, with this extreme turned up angle of these bars, this cannot be comfortable for long distances, and it's definitely not safe for descending. But we'll address that, and we'll do that with kid gloves, because it's been my experience over the last 15 years of being a bike fitter that people are very enamored with their bike fit, and they are very sensitive when someone offers a suggestion. All right, so moving on from that, there is a term in French cooking, and it's called mise en place. And basically what that means is having everything in place, or having everything set out before you begin preparing your meal. And that just makes everything much quicker and easier and less stressful for you. So here's what we have in my mise en place for a drivetrain, kind of basically a drivetrain rebuild, because we're taking so many things off. All right, so we have the chain whip, we have a just basic crescent wrench and the lock ring removal tool. We're going to use a torque wrench for several things, torquing the bolts onto the chain rings, and also for torquing the bottom, left crank arm onto the spindle. Sometimes you need to have the small, thin screwdriver to get the safety catch out. It's a redundant thing that Shimano uses on the left crank arm in case your bolts come loose. We will have to adjust her front derailleur. So the 5 and the 4 millimeter are common. We'll most likely have to replace the crank because this is a very extreme change. I'm sorry, the chain. Apologies. Replace the chain just because of the chain length is not going to be adequate. And the new Shimano chains have a quick link, so we'll need that to put that back on. Here is the cassette that we're going to use. So it's going to be an 1134. This is very large and a very big range. From 11 to 34, you have to get there in 11 cogs. So, that's 23 of a range. Now, normally in 1128 or 1125, that means that each one of your cogs is a very close ratio, or much closer ratio than this is going to be. So, like an 1121 or something like that, 1123, those gears are so close that if you click in one direction, it's the right gear, and if you click in the other direction, it's the right gear, because there's only one tooth separating 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, sometimes all the way up to possibly 19 is when it'll start to skip. We'll always have grease, just because once we take off the crankset to change the chain rings, we'll have to grease everything to put it all back together. Here's the chain, and as I mentioned, this is going to have a quick link on it, so there it is. And just an interesting note, Shimano did not approve quick links until this series of this iteration. For a long time they didn't have it on their 10-speed chains and 11-speed chains. Okay, then what we're also going to do is replace the chain rings with this absolute black chainring setup. So this is a 30 on the inner, and it's black because you can't see it anyway. And then this is the one that's going to match the finish on the Ultegra 6800. This is a 46. So we're going to take her compact crankset and turn it into a subcompact. And it's most commonly used in graveling, but we're going to use it on the road. The customer said she wanted as many gear, as small of a gear range as possible for climbing, so this is how we're going to get it done. So we're going to have a 46 and a 30. So that means her climbing gear will then be, her ultimate climbing gear will be a 30-tooth chainring and a 34-tooth cog in the back. So that's pretty big, and we've gone past a 1-to-1 ratio of, let's say, a 34-tooth chainring, which would be on a compact crankset. Now, these chainrings have to be bought in pairs. So, for example, if you're riding a 48, then you would have a 32 inner. And that is because there is a 16-tooth maximum gear range between your big ring and your little ring that Shimano, that's their limitation. So if you have a 53 and a 39, that's 14 teeth. So that shifts very nicely. Sometimes with a compact of a 50-34, that 16-tooth difference can sometimes cause an issue. And this would also be a max range from a 46 to a 30. Okay, so thank you so much for spending the time with me today, and we will get this bike tuned up. Now she's picking the bike up tomorrow, so we've got a little bit of time to play with it. These are oval rings, and so sometimes there is a little bit of a challenge of getting that front derailleur to be adjusted right. So we'll be playing with this one today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe. Please take a little bit of time to make a comment so that I can address your questions, and we will see you on the road.